But for you others, do ye swear friendship and oaths of faith with sacrifice. So should ye dwell in deep-soiled Troyland, and let them return to Argos, pasture land of horses, and to Achaea, the land of fair women. So spake he, and Hector rejoiced greatly when he heard his words. And he went into the midst, and kept back the battalions of the Trojans with his spear grasped by the middle, and they all sat them down. But the long-haired Achaeans sought the while to aim their arrows at him, and to smite him, and to cast at him with stones. But aloud shouted Agamemnon, king of men, Hold, ye Argives, shoot no more, ye youths of the Achaeans, for Hector of the flashing helm makes as though he would say somewhat. So spake he, and they stayed them from battle, and became silent forthwith. I'm just going to make a few brief general comments before we start looking at the individual lines. And this orkia pista tamontes is a very traditional phrase for oath-taking, and of course it's made in the context of the most solemn form of which a victim or victims is slaughtered. So cutting here applies to them, moreover, than they themselves embody the oath and be called the orkia pista. Now at the oath ceremony, which precedes the duel itself, not the oath referred to here, we have two separate acts of cutting are performed. First, hair is cut from the animals' heads and distributed to the participants, and then after the enunciation of the oath, their throats are cut. The almost metaphorical use of the cutting oaths phraseology allows the addition of philotheta as an object of tamontes by a form of hendiadis, and that's certainly worth knowing. The swearing oaths of friendship, this hendiadis. And of course, this whole phrase is repeated at least twice or even more throughout the Iliad. The various parties are loosely but effectively distinguished by Paris. The rest, that is, aside from Helen, Menelaus, and Paris himself, are to take an oath of friendship, and of them the Trojans may continue to dwell, and that's Nioite, a concessive, in fertile Troy, and let the Achaeans return to the Achaean land. And the final verse, in 75, we have this word Kaligunaika is applied twice to Hellas elsewhere, and that's actually Achilles' homeland, and it may have a special resonance here for Helen's beauty. Now looking at verses 76 to 78, these three verses recur also in Book 7, at the beginning of the second great duel episode of the Iliad. So Book 3 and Book 7 have these duels, and they do not appear elsewhere. Neither is the motif of a leader signalling by holding up his spear the way that Hector does, nor does that of an army sitting down in response. And in fact, there's nothing at all closely similar to this episode in the rest of the Iliad. So that's worth noting. If you want to make some comparisons to Book 7, well, that's quite hard actually to do. But I'll try my best. Okay, so since Hector's great joy is more naturally engendered by Paris' offer to fight than by Helenos' cursory suggestion in Book 7, and moreover, here the Achaeans will at first fail to respect Hector's signal, whereas in Book 7 they respond immediately, as though by then familiar with it. But the duels of Book 3 and Book 7 have been looked at more closely by a chap called Fenwick, and he wrote a book in 1978, and it's called Home, Tradition and Invention, if you're interested, between pages 19 and 40. Line 77, we had this idea of he was holding back the ranks of Trojans, and I think that the sort of the format of the words that are used in their order is very much determined by the metrical requirements. So that's worth looking out for. In 78, So, like tragedy later, epic was not particularly sensitive to accidental repetitions. So, as of mesu here after meson in the previous verse, that's accidental. 79 to 80. I think here it there's something interesting syntactically, and it's the different implications of the imperfect tense here. So the idea of the translation might be something like, and the long-haired Achaeans began to shoot at him, aiming with arrows and stones, they tried to hit him. But I'll talk about that more in detail as we get there. Almost finishing off. Let's look at lines 82 to 3. Now, Agamemnon, you can see, calls in urgent tones for the bombardment of Hector to cease, repeating and rephrasing both the word of command and the vocative for greater emphasis. Then, in contrast with 4 strongly segmented cola, comes the fluent and explanatory rising threefolder of 83, stutai. And that's an old epic verb apparently meaning promise, threaten, or indicate. It doesn't actually come from histemi, which was thought for a long time. So that's of interest. And perhaps the last thing I'll comment is in line 84, we have this annuo there. It's used as an adverb, and in silence without an iota, which was added by the majority of grammarians because they thought it was a plural later on in history. So let's look at the Greek now. So line 73, we've got this hoi daloi philoteta kai orkia pista tamontes, which is, we're told about cutting an oath, isn't it? So hoi daloi, the rest of you, toi de, meaning while they. Paris sketches a peaceful outcome for both sides, which is nice. Philotes, friendship, and orkion, an oath, and pistos, trustworthy and reliable, and tamno, to cut or seal. So, cutting an oath involves animal sacrifice, as I mentioned before, to solemnize the oath. The phrase occurs 6 times in the Iliad, and I think it occurs once in the Odyssey as well. And as I said, philoteta kai orkia pista, literally translated friendship and reliable oaths, means reliable oaths of friendship. And this is a prime example of hendiadys. So do look that up and make sure you know how you can point it out if you should get this segment. Okay. Now the next line. Oh, sorry, I should try and do a good translation of that, shouldn't we? Well, I think when I started off, it's say, but for you others, do you swear friendship and oaths of faith with sacrifice? There we go. It's a nice archaic translation. Maybe you'd like to look up a nice one, a modern one. Okay, right, let's look at line 74, which starts off with this word naiote, sorry, and that comes from naio, which means to dwell or to live. And here we've got the optative because we're using it to express a wish for the future. So may you dwell in, so that's the idea, naiote. Eribolex, well, the eri, I think it's like a very here, okay, but bolex is certainly fertile, so eribolex, very fertile, toi, and here referring the hoi, referring to the Greeks, so toi in Homeric Greek will be hoi in Attic, okay, the Greeks. Neomai, now this is a third person imperative, so it's quite rare. Return, so may they return. May they return. So if we want to have a go at a translation for that one, then we'll just carry on. So should ye dwell in deep soiled Troyland and let them return. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. So now naioite Troyen eri boleka toi de ne esthon. Oh, that esthon, of course, is a verb, and and should say what it is really, shouldn't I? Yes, it's a third person imperative. May they return. Okay, good. 75. Well, we've got this. Argos, of course, is the city of Argos. It's a city in the Peloponnese. It's near Mycenae, and of course, it's the famous home of Agamemnon. Okay. So Argos that's Homeric for ice in Attic with the accusative towards. So Argos, ice, hippoboton kai achaida kaligunaike. That is, so Argos and hippobotos is a horse nourishing, and kaligunaikes, kalos pasgune, which means with beautiful women. So we also, of course, have mention of achaiis, achaidos, he, feminine, and of course that's the land of Achaia, which is Greece. Achaiis. There we go. So third line. So we just said let them to return to Argos, pasture lands of horses, and to Achaia, the land of fair women. Lovely. Okay, let's go now to line 76. We've got a part of themi, which means obviously to speak. So hos efato, so he spoke. And this is a common expression to mark the end of a speech. Okay, so we got that. And we've seen it in 84, 95, 111, etc. And echare is an aorist, and that comes from chairomai, okay, which we've had before as well. And mega, of course, you know greatly. It's a neuter singular here, used as an adverb rather than an adjective. Okay, so 76. Hos efath, Hector daute chare mega muthon accusas. Okay, so so spake he, and Hector rejoiced greatly when he heard his words. Okay, nice. Now we're going to line 76. What am I going to say there? 76, yeah. So we got this, 77, excuse me, just on 76. 77, we got this interesting thing with it's actually hara, or you probably know it from your attic as ara. So it's a question word, isn't it? Okay, well disguised. And mesos, we've had before as well. Ion is a participle of Amy, and anergo is to keep back. Ergo, keep back, and phalagos is you might know it from the derivation phalanx, a battle line. Phalanx. Okay, lovely word. Right, so let's read the line. Kai res meson ion troon anerge phalagas. Or phalangas, sorry. So let's try and translate that, shall we? So Hector's just greatly rejoiced at hearing his words, and it went into the ranks of the Trojan battle lines, isn't it? And kept back the Trojan battle lines, yeah. So, and he went into the midst of the Trojans, keeping back their battle lines. Nice. Okay. Now here, there's no intent to. There's nothing of significance in the repetition of the word mesu, I don't think. Okay, but you can see that it has been. Anyway, so let's look at now 76, 77, 78. 78, duros. We've had that loads of times. It's a spear, isn't it? Hyreo plus the genitive. And when you have verbs of touching or holding, usually they have their object in the genitive case. Okay, that's worth knowing. Hoi here, or toi, refers to the Trojans in this instance, and idruomai means to sit down. So, idruomai, I sit down, and hapantes and pantes is exactly the same thing. Okay, no difference there. So, so Hector's what? He's gone into the Miskit battle, and with his spear grasped by the middle, they all sat him down, and he made them sit down. Okay, so holding his spear in the middle, the Trojans, all of them, sat down. So we said before, this way of holding your sort of spear sideways and indicate everyone sit down, that's new. Okay. Right, 79. What have we got 79? We've got this to, which is basically Attic for auto, and meaning Hector in this instance. Epitaxazomai, tox, of course, one idiot. Epitoxazomai, to shoot arrows at. Toxuo, we know, of course, but epitoxazomai, to shoot arrows. And of course, you'll notice that it's from the imperfect that they began to shoot. And that's a nice use of the imperfect to show that an action was started. I think, is that called the inceptive imperfect? I'm not sure. Okay. And I think care camontes is, of course, the epithet. Okay, so let's read 79. It says, to epitoxazonto care camontes achaioi. At Hector, they began to shoot. And what did they begin to shoot? Obviously, arrows. Didn't I mention stones? I think I did in the beginning. Maybe that was the wrong thing to do. But the long-haired Achaeans. That's right. The long-haired Achaeans continued to shoot arrows at Hector. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so while Hector's trying to make everyone sit down on his side, no one's paying attention on the Greek side as yet, and they continue to shoot arrows. Okay, and that's right, we do get the throwing of stones. I thought we did in 80. So the 80 then is Eos is an arrow, and Tituskomai is I aim, and Laas is a stone. That's masculine. Ho, Laas. Okay. So this we said was Iosin te Tituskomenoi Laasi te Tebelon. Okay. So they what did they do? And they continued to aim, isn't it? All the while aiming arrows at him and smiting to smite him and cast at him stones. So they were throwing stones and aiming at him, and we said that this Eoisin is arrows. So with arrows, they both continue to aim at him and to strike him, and throwing stones. Okay. Right, carrying on. And 81, Ho, in this case referring to Agamemnon. So he, I suppose you'd translate it. Macron, loudly, literally far away. Okay. Awo, to shout. Anaktos is a lord, and Anax andron, as the stock epithet for Agamemnon, Lord of Men. Okay, so autar homacron au sen anax andron Agamemnon. So, and then the, well, but I suppose about the better. But shouted from afar, Agamemnon, king of men. Okay, not from afar, literally. This is really loudly, but Agamemnon, the lord of men, shouted aloud. And what does he shout aloud? That's line 82. Line 82, it's ischomai. Ischomai means to stop. And me, of course, is a negation. And kuros is a son. Ho, kuros. So, isches agaioi me balate kuroi achaion. Stop, O Greeks. Do not throw, O sons of the Achaeans. Okay, lovely. So that's nice and clear. Imperative use there. Stutai garti epos erein koruthaios Hector. Okay, so now this stutai, which is taking a future infinitive after it, is usually is from stumai, be about to. Okay, so that's the idea there. Epos is of course a word. Erein is probably, you would know that as Lego, but we have actually come across, if you look at the heiress of Lego, I think we have come to, or the future, I think we have seen that. Koruthaios Aeon, of the gleaming helmet. That's Hector's go-to epithet, isn't it? Koruthaios. Okay, gleaming helmet. Yes. Okay, so so he's saying, stop, Argians, stop throwing, O sons of Achaea, for Hector of the gleaming helm is about to say something, say a word. He wants a word. Okay, lovely. 84, we have this hos ephath, which we've seen before. That's when, so he spoke, that's when you end, that's what Agamemnon has to say. Shut his troops up. Echomai plus the genitive, keep from. Echomai with the genitive means to keep from. Aneo is the nominative plural of aneos, and it means silent. So if we're looking at translating 84, so thus he spoke, and the Greeks eschonto, we said, were ceased from battle and became silent. Good. Okay, so they listened to their king. And we're left with line 85, last one we'll do today, which was Esoumenos Hector de met amphoteroisin aipe. Yeah. Esoumenos. So that means eagerly. So nice adverb there. Meta with the dative means among, or to. And amphoteron is an adjective, means both or both sides. That's the implication. So sounds like they want to actually hear what has got to be said, and they should really, shouldn't they? It means they might not have to keep fighting. So how would you say that? So he spoke, and they ceased from battle and became silent. Eagerly, Hector began to speak, not among both, but to both sides. And Hector began to speak to both sides. Okay, so you might want to read the Greek as it's on the screen and go through that a few times, but I think that's pretty clear that what's going on here.